I want to eat pizza, but I don't want to get fat. So here's what I did.
So I wanted to show you my awesome high volume, low calorie pizza casserole. When you crave pizza, this is gonna knock it out and allow you to eat a bunch of it. We've got the ingredients that are gonna be in there. We got a bunch of bell peppers, onions, cauliflower rice. Here we have 99% lean turkey breast. That's going to go in there for our protein meat source. We also have a lower calorie Classico, only 50 calories per serving, marinara or spaghetti sauce. Also have a fat-free cheese, a Velveeta lower fat blended cheese, also reduced fat calorie pepperonis, and Laughing Cow that will go in there as well. Time to cook the meat. Throw a few spices on here. Got some garlic salt, garlic powder, and some pepper. Gonna throw the lid on here since it was frozen to allow it to cook better. Defrost the frozen cauliflower rice in the microwave. Now I'm gonna cut up the peppers and onions. So I try to be the most efficient and effective as I can when cutting up the peppers. I've found for the top parts that scissors has been the quickest way to cut up these. Then I use a knife for the other bell peppers. I try to do this as efficiently and quickly as possible, and the little technique I'll use sometimes is laying one on top of the other. Always looking for faster ways to do this, and make sure whenever you're using a knife, you're curling your fingers in there to keep from cutting yourself. If anyone knows of a faster, more efficient way to cut bell peppers, I would love to know. Now it's time to cut the onion. So I pretty much use the same seasonings for the vegetables that I do for the meat. The only difference, I put a few sprays of Can't Believe It's Not Butter, throw that on there, and a little bit of minced garlic. Throw a little ground turmeric in there as well. I don't have any oregano this time. If I did, I would also put some of that. So I want to make sure I get the meat all in tiny little pieces. Make sure it's really broken up nice. Meat's about done. I'm going to take it out of here and then throw the vegetables in here to cook. Now I'm going to throw the vegetables in here to cook. So I got the now thawed cauliflower out, and I'm going to transfer these over to this other bowl here. I'm going to dump them all out. So I want to make sure before I throw the cauliflower in here, I want to cook the vegetables down to where they're cooked pretty much all the way and there's a minimum amount of water in the pan. All right, so while the vegetables are cooking, I am going to get my Laughing Cow cheese wedges ready to put in the mix. And these are 25 calories a piece. So I'm just going to get these all out as soon as the vegetables and the cauliflower is done cooking. I'm using 10 of them for this recipe. Now that I have just about most of the water cooked out, because remember, this is going to be the mix for your pizza casserole, so it cannot be too watery or else that will affect the finished product. So now that I have most of the water cooked out, I'm going to put the cauliflower rice in. So many vegetables, it's awesome. So I'm gonna mix all this together. Once I have it all mixed in well, then I'm gonna put the cheese in there, the Laughing Cow cheese. All right, now that I have the water pretty much cooked out of there and the cauliflower rice mixed in, I'm going to put the Laughing Cow cheese in there. And once I get all these in, I am going to mix them in, mix it all around. I like to kind of keep it in the center as I'm mixing this part up, because sometimes if I don't do it that way, then there can be chunks that I miss. So this kind of allows me to make sure I'm getting all of it smoothly melted before I mix it all together. And it's still just a little bit watery, so I'm gonna continue cooking it and stirring it, making sure I don't let it burn, to get all those, as much water as I can cooked out before I put it in the pan for my mix. Yep. Now I'm gonna go ahead and mix the meat in. Once I get this all mixed in and I cook it around a little bit more, I'm gonna let it sit and thicken for a little bit before I put it in the casserole dish. Because again, this is your mix for the pizza casserole, so the more you can let it thicken up, and the less water it has in there, the better it's going to hold together as you're cutting slices of your pizza casserole when it's done. I use an extra large casserole Pyrex dish for this recipe because it is extra large. And be sure to spray your dish down with some Pam spray so it does not stick. So notice how I've cooked it until when I part it, there is like no liquid. That's the way you want your consistency to be before you're adding it to the pan. So when I'm ready to add it to the pan, I'm going to kind of make a line of half of it. I'm going to start by putting half of it in the pan here. Once I have about half of it in, I'm going to smooth it out. You can kind of give it some lines in it, because next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the sauce in. And I'm going to use this whole deal for the casserole, but I'm going to start off with about half of the jar for this first layer here. Now you can do a little bit less if you'd like. I just am a marinara fan, so I like to use a whole container on it. And then I want to smooth this out. And once I have that smoothed out, I'm just going to put an even layer of cheese using a blend of fat-free mozzarella and also the Velveeta fat-free mozzarella, 45 calories per serving. The Velveeta has about 60 calories per serving. So I'm just going to start adding the cheese, making sure I'm getting the edges. Also throw a little bit of mild cheddar. Normally I'll just use the mozzarella, but I'm running a little low, so I'm subbing in a little bit of fat-free mild cheddar on here. Switch over to the Velveeta. This is the Mexican blend. So next thing from here, I'm gonna go ahead and put our first layer of pepperonis. So I just line them up. Now that we have our first layer done, it's time for the second and final layer. Pour this on here. I'm just gonna kind of try to evenly distribute it so I don't mess up my pepperoni placement on my first layer. All right, and the same thing, I'm going to smooth this all out. And now it's time for the last layer of the marinara sauce, and smooth it all out. Now we're gonna do our last layer of cheese. The same thing, I wanna make sure I'm getting all the edges. And again, I would normally use all mozzarella for the fat-free cheese that I use, but was short of it this time, so using a little bit of the mild. And then we'll go back to the Velveeta, do just a little bit more. Make sure it's all nice and evenly covered. And now we've got our final layer of pepperoni. All right, now we got all the pepperoni on there. We're going to put some foil on the top. Now when I'm putting the foil on, I like to do a little cheat code and fold up one of the corners. That way, whenever, because I'm going to cook this for 30 minutes on 400 in the oven, and then I'm going to take the foil off, so this little corner here will allow me to just pull it off easily, and then I will cook it for 15 additional minutes. Now it's time to put it in the oven. Got the oven set to 400 degrees. It's preheated and ready. So I'm going to set it in with my edge out in front of me, so that way I can take the foil off easily when it's time. So I'll put it in there, set the timer for 30 minutes. Timer has gone off for the 30 minutes. So we're going to take the foil off here, slide it back in for 15 more minutes. It's done. Time to take it out. Look at that nice bubbling pizza casserole.
I'm gonna let it cool down a little bit before I cut it, but I choose to, when I cut it up, I choose to use scissors to cut the lines out first and then use a spatula. Because if you try to just use a spatula on this, because it's so thick, sometimes when you push down, it can bring the cheese in with it. So you could lose your cheese, or you could use a really sharp knife to do it. but I just prefer to use scissors.
Let's give it a try. Topped it with some avocado ranch. High protein meal, 33 grams of protein, a full serving of vegetables, and just 300 calories per serving. If you're into high volume, low calorie meals that actually taste amazing, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.